How many of you were lucky enough to own PlayStations in your childhood? The PlayStation proved to be the groundbreaking gaming console, introducing 3D graphics, enhanced gameplay, and immersive experiences to a wide audience. It quickly gained popularity, surpassing its competitors and establishing itself as a dominant player in the gaming industry. Don't you want to know more about this incredible invention? A team led by Ken Kutaragi, a renowned engineer and executive at Sony, invented the GameStation. Hence, Kutaragi is often called the father of the PlayStation. He played a crucial role in the development and success of the PlayStation brand. He joined Sony in the 1970s and initially worked on sound technology for various consumer electronics products. Enough about the PlayStation. We're going to move on to the most advanced component of a PlayStation, which is its controller. In the context of PlayStation, a controller refers to a handheld input device used to interact with games and navigate through the console's user interface. It's the primary means of controlling the action of characters or objects within a game. PlayStation controllers have evolved over the years, but they typically consist of a set of buttons, analog sticks, triggers, and other features that enable precise and intuitive input. Here is the journey of that evolution. The original PlayStation controller. The original PlayStation controller was released in 1994 alongside the console itself. It was designed by Teiyu Goto, who was also responsible for designing the Super Nintendo Entertainment System controller. The PlayStation controller was a significant departure from the SNES controller, with a more ergonomic design and a number of new features. One of the most notable features of the PlayStation controller was the use of 4 colored buttons: triangle, circle, cross, and square. These buttons were used to represent different actions in games, and they quickly became iconic. The X button was added later after Sony's focus groups found that many people were confused by the use of the circle button to select options. The controller also featured 2 analog sticks used for movement and camera control. The controller's analog sticks were originally designed to be used for flight simulator games. However, they quickly became popular for a wide variety of games, and they are now one of the most iconic features of the PlayStation controller. The controller's directional pad was designed to be more ergonomic than the directional pads on other controllers. It was also designed to be easier to use for fighting games. The controller's face buttons were designed to be pressure sensitive. This allowed for more nuanced controls, and players could press harder buttons to perform different actions. The shape of a human hand inspired the controller's design. This made it more comfortable to hold for long periods of time. The controller was originally released in gray, but it was later released in a variety of colors, including black, blue, green, and red. It was also one of the first controllers to be widely adopted by PC gamers. The Dual Analog Controller. The Dual Analog Controller was released in Japan in November 1997 and in North America in February 1998. It was one of the minor revisions of the original controller. The most significant change was the addition of adding 2 more analog sticks, which were used for shoulder buttons. This made the controller more versatile and allowed for more complex gameplay. But this was not a major commercial success, but it did pave the way for the DualShock controller. The Dual Analog Controller was a minor revision of the original PlayStation controller, but it made a big difference in the way games were played. The DualShock Controller. The DualShock controller was released in 1998, and it was a major turning point in the evolution of PlayStation controllers. The most significant new feature included the haptic feedback, which allowed the controller to vibrate. This made the controller more immersive and responsive, quickly becoming a standard controller feature. The DualShock controller also featured a number of other improvements, including larger analog sticks, a more ergonomic design, and a built-in speaker. It was a critical and commercial success, and it remains one of the most popular controllers of all time. The DualShock controller was a critical and commercial success, and it helped to define the look-feel of PlayStation games. It was also one of the first controllers to be widely adopted by PC gamers. The DualShock 2 controller. Did you know that the DualShock 2 controller was the first to feature pressure-sensitive buttons? The DualShock 2 controller was released in 2000 and was a minor revision of the original DualShock controller. The most significant change was the addition of pressure-sensitive buttons, which allowed for more nuanced control. It was particularly useful in games requiring a delicate touch, such as racing and fighting games. The DualShock 2 controller was also much more durable than the original DualShock controller, and it featured a slightly different button layout. The DualShock 2 controller moved the L2 and R2 buttons to the back of the controller, making them easier to reach. This was a welcome change for many gamers, and the L2 and R2 buttons were often used in action games and shooters. It was a critical and commercial success, and it remained the standard PlayStation controller until the release of the DualShock 3 controller in 2006. It's still considered by many to be one of the best controllers ever made, and it's still used by some gamers even today. The DualShock 3 controller. The DualShock 3 controller was released in 2006, and it was the first PlayStation controller to feature wireless connectivity. It also featured a built-in speaker and a light bar that could be used for various purposes, such as providing feedback in games. The DualShock 3 controller also features a built-in speaker. This speaker could be used to play sound effects in games, such as footsteps and gunfire. It could also be used to play music or other audio files. The DualShock 3 controller also featured a light bar. This light bar could be used for various purposes, such as providing feedback in games or identifying the players in multiplayer games. The DualShock 3 controller also features a number of other features, such as pressure-sensitive buttons, a rumble feature, and a touchpad. These features make the DualShock 3 controller a versatile and powerful one that can be used to play various games. The DualShock 4 controller. The DualShock 4 controller was released in 2013 and was a significant revision of the DualShock 3 controller. The most notable new features was the addition of the touchpad, which could be used for a variety of purposes, such as navigating menus, entering text, and playing games. The touchpad can be used to navigate menus, enter text, and play games. For example, in the game FIFA 22, you can use a touchpad to control the in-game cursor. The DualShock 4 controller also featured a more ergonomic design, a built-in speaker, and a light bar that could be used for various purposes, such as providing feedback in games. The speaker can add a new level of immersion to games, as gamers can hear the sounds of their surroundings as they play. For example, in the game Uncharted 4, you can use a speaker to hear the sounds of wind blowing through the trees or the sound of footsteps approaching. The DualSense controller. The DualSense controller was released in 2020 and is the latest and most advanced PlayStation controller. The most significant new feature includes haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, which allows the controller to provide more realistic and immersive feedback. Adaptive triggers can be used to create a more immersive gaming experience, as players can feel the impact of their actions in the game world. For example, in the game Astro's Playroom, players can feel the different textures of the ground as they walk on it and the force of gust of wind as it blows them around. This can be used to simulate the feeling of pulling a bowstring or squeezing a trigger, and it can help players feel more immersed in the game. For example, in the game Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, the adaptive triggers can simulate the feeling of loading a gun or firing a bullet. The DualSense controller also features a more ergonomic design, a built-in speaker, and a microphone. Do you think the DualSense controller is the best controller on the market? Currently, there's no official announcement about the next PlayStation controller. However, there have been some rumors and speculations about what it might include. One rumor is the next PlayStation controller will have a built-in screen. This would allow players to see more information without having to look at the TV screen. Another rumor is the controller will have haptic feedback and adaptive triggers like the DualSense controller. This would make the gaming experience more immersive. It's also possible that the next PlayStation controller will be designed to work with virtual reality games. This would allow players to have a more realistic VR experience. Still, nobody knows the exact answer. Do you have any interesting guesses? Then let us know in the comment section. Let creativity be poured upon the comments. Thanks for watching this video on the evolution of PlayStation controllers. We've come a long way since the original PlayStation controller, and it's exciting to see what the future holds for gaming controllers. Tap that like button below. Farewell.